recorder started. Just make sure nobody get in. Yep.
Just a couple quick question. What's the difference between 32 and 64? The Linux?
It depends on your Windows version. If you have a 64-bit Windows, you use the Start 64.
Okay. But how do you tell the difference between the Windows and?
I think if you just right-click on My Computer in Windows and then look at Properties, that should show you the version of the operating system. All right, it is 1:15, so I'm going to get started. You have your first homework assignment. It has nothing to do with the syntax of C programming. It has more to do with whether you know the steps of how to turn in your homework assignment, and also to get to know the environment where you'll be doing your C++ programming. Okay, so what I'll do today is I'm going to show you, how to do it. So I will do it in class once. Okay, and it's also getting recorded. And then you guys will have to, find out, which way you want to do it, and then do it also, using, whatever tool you choose to use. There are two main, ways of doing homework assignments in this class. One way is to run the Linux virtual machine, so you'll be doing most of the stuff using the command line interface. Some people look at it as the hard way, because you have to do a lot of typing, load of commands, and stuff like that. The other way is to use CodeBlocks, which is an IDE. It's an integrated development environment where everything is kind of quote unquote integrated. But I personally don't like that as much, because there are a lot of buttons. It is more distracting, at least to me. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with using the virtual machine first. To use the virtual machine, you have to go back to once you log into this class website, go to the first topic, which is getting started. Within that topic, one topic is called want to run Linux but not ready to give up Windows. The last paragraph has a link to the virtual machine, and this is one big zip file. The file itself is about 600, close to 700 megabytes. Once it expands to about 1.6, 1.7 gigabytes on the drive. By today's standard, it is not too bad. Okay, 1.6 gigabytes is not too bad by today's standard, especially if you have an external hard drive, which works a lot faster in this case compared to a thumb drive. Once you expand it, it will give you. Okay, I'll show you exactly what files are included once you expand this zip file. How many people have done this part already, or have? Okay. So once you expand it, it will give you a folder. Let me just go back and look at that one. Okay, once you expand it, it will give you a folder. I know this is not Windows, but it will still show you the files that are included in this zip file. For those of you who are using Windows, the 32-bit of Windows, you use this particular file to start. Just double-click the batch file, and it should start the virtual machine. If you are using a 64-bit version of Windows, then you use Start 64 to start up the virtual machine. Are there any questions about how to start up the virtual machine? If you use Linux, go ahead.
So I have it on my computer, but the problem is that Norton just doesn't let it start, because I have a security here, and they just flag it as a Trojan. So I have to disable it and turn it on, and then it turns on, but it's just I have to disable it.
Okay. Security. So some security software may classify as a Trojan, as a malware.
If you just turn that on, it usually works.
Okay, thank you. Question? Nope. Okay. Since I'm using Linux, I'm going to use start.sh. So to start that, I'm using a command line to do it. So it's inside my download folder, inside Linux, and I start the program using /start.sh. Okay, but that's only for Linux. But once you start it, you should see the same thing. QEMU runs exactly the same way. whether you're using a 32-bit version of Windows, 64-bit of Windows, or in Linux. Except in this case, because I do have hardware acceleration, so it runs significantly faster than what you would probably see. That's because in Windows we don't have a hardware accelerator. The one that Intel publishes, somehow is not incorporated into QEMU. So it does take a little bit longer to start, but assuming your homework will take about, let's say, 15 minutes to get it done, spending 1 minute to start up the virtual machine is not too bad. I mean, it is significantly longer, but once it starts, it's not too bad. Okay, so once you start the virtual machine, you can log in using this console, where the title bar says, QEMU, to start to do your homework assignment. But that's probably not the best way to do it for one reason, because there's only one terminal here. If you use it this way, then you only have one terminal, which means you can only do one thing at a time. You can edit the file, you can compile, you can look up the man pages, but you can only do one thing at a time. Now, do you guys have any questions back there? Because I saw that you guys were talking a little bit. Anything I can answer? No? Okay. So what you want to do is to use PuTTY to open up multiple terminals into the virtual machine. So let's go ahead and take a look at the folder. This is the folder that you get when you unzip the file. In this folder, there are several programs, there are several executables that you can run in Windows. The first one is called PuTTY, P-U-T-T-Y, and it's a dumb terminal program intended for using SSH. So one thing you can do is to just run that program. I am using Linux here, but I can still run it. Well, probably not from here. I can run it from here. Okay, I'm gonna. Don't mind this part here. I'm just navigating to the right folder. Okay, so now I have, I'm in the same folder, and I can run PuTTY. I can run it using Wine, which is not a emulator. Okay, when you run PuTTY, this is the first screen you will see. In this screen, there are several things you can do. You can change the look of PuTTY. In other words, you can change the font size and stuff like that. So what you want to do, if you want to do that, is to go to Window here, and then under Window is Appearance. Yeah, under Appearance, you can change the font size. So go to Font Settings and change it to something that is, larger. Like in the class setting, I want to make it larger so that you guys can see it. So I'm going to change it to use 14-point size, and click OK. And then go back to Session here. Now this part is really important. If you don't change the size of the font, that's okay. I mean, the default is going to work. The host name or IP address should be localhost. Okay, localhost, you can just spell it out, or you can use the numbers 127.0.0.1. They are the same thing. Depends on which one is easier for you to remember. Most people just use localhost. The other thing you have to do is to change the port number to 2200 instead of 22. Now, if for any reason port 2200 is used on your computer, you can change the batch file to use a different port number, and then you have to make this change, change here accordingly. Now, if this is something that you do often, you can also save a session. So in order to save a session, you have to give it a name, and then you click Save. So from here on, you can just double click cisp360, and it will use the right terminal size. It will use the local host and port 2200. So you don't have to re-enter everything every time when you want to log into the virtual machine. So I'm going to start a session here. Connection refused. Okay, not working. Let's see. Do I have the virtual machine running? I'm just double checking whether the virtual machine is running. It is running, and I want to start this again. connection refused. Okay, the problem is not with the virtual machine, but it has to do with a PuTTY running under Wine somehow does not work. That's okay. I can still show you Wine. It's a little bit different, but this time I'm running it, inside Linux itself, and I have everything set up already. So you can see there's a profile or a session called cisp360, and it already has localhost pre-programmed and port 2200 also here. So once you have all these settings, you click Open. And this time it's successful because I have been using this, since the morning. So this one is proven to work. If you follow the steps, it should work as well in Windows because you don't have to go through Wine in Windows to run an executable. Okay, so you log in as the default user, unless you want to set up your own account, which is not necessary in this class. And the default password of user is just user. And now that I have logged in, let's go ahead and look at the instructions for your homework assignment. Your homework assignment is under the heading of getting started. So when you go to getting started and scroll to the bottom part, you will see Hello Your World, and that's your homework assignment. And when you click on your homework assignment, you will see the description of your homework assignment. So without really reading out everything, this is about how to set up a folder and create a source file, and the only thing the source file has to do is to print hello and then your first name's apostrophe s world. Okay, that's all you need to do. So what I'll do in class is I'll illustrate how to write a program that prints hello text world. Okay. So inside PuTTY, and by the way, you can open up as many PuTTY sessions as you want. They all connect to the same virtual machine, so you can use one to edit the program and use one to compile and run the program. There's only one thing you have to remember is once you save the file, you have to recompile and then relink in order for the program to be updated. So I'll show you all of these steps here. This is one session, and I'll go ahead and open up another session. So I'll go to here and open up another session. And this is why it's nice to have a session already saved. I just double click on the session and it opens up to the local host through port 2200 again. All right. So with this one, I'm going to create a folder called hello, and this is what you need to do as well, is to create a folder called hello to store your project. And once I create the subfolder, I have to change to that folder using cd or change directory. Now that I'm in that folder, I can create a file. There are two editors that are built into the Linux environment. One is called Nano, which is a fairly easy one to use. It has limited capability, but if you're starting off with this environment, I would use Nano. Okay? If you already know how to get around in Linux, the CLI does not bother you, and you know something about VI already, then go ahead and use VI. But I would not use VI as my first editor when I'm still learning how to use the command line interface. So Nano is the one that you want to use, and you want to create a file called main.cpp. Okay? So nano main.cpp is going to create a file called main.cpp, and it will put you into the editor. This is the editor. You can see some clues at the bottom here. When you see the upper, well, I shouldn't say upper, when you see the caret symbol, it means control. So this means, Control G will get you some help. It will display some online help. Control O will save the file. Control X will exit, and so on. So I'm going to write the program here. And as I'm writing the program, I will artificially introduce some errors, just to show you what you will get when you type, the program incorrectly and you'll have some errors. So I'm going to say hello text world exclamation point. I'll come back and make the errors. So let's just say that I make a mistake here by not having that end semicolon on this line. Okay, it's a syntax error. The compiler will catch it. Okay, but I want to do it just so that I can illustrate the process of doing your debugging, at least for this homework assignment. So in the second window, which is actually open to the same virtual machine. Now do not click start 64 or start 32 on the same icon twice, because you don't want to run the same virtual machine in 2 instances. That would be really, really bad. So don't do that. This is using PuTTY to open up 2 terminals, not running the virtual machine twice. Does everybody understand what I just said? Yep.
Is there like a reason why you want to PuTTY into something where you could just open up another terminal inside the virtual machine?
Because this way you can have one for editing and one for running. You don't have to get out of the editor to run and then go back into the editor to change.
It won't do that? It won't open up another terminal? Or
No. No.
do
The virtual machine will give you one single console and that's it. Yep. Say again?
Are those 2 separate virtual machines then?
No. There's only one virtual machine. The one single virtual machine is this one here. Okay? But it only gives you one console. It gives you one single text command line interface. So you have to use the same one for editing, compiling, editing, and so on, which may not be what some people want to do. Some people may want to use one for the editor and just stay for editing the file and use the other one for running the program. Yeah, for this program, obviously, it doesn't matter that much because the program is relatively simple and you don't really need to open up multiple terminals. But at some point, you will probably encounter projects that are more difficult where being able to open up multiple terminals will be useful. So I'm just going to illustrate how to do it from here.
All right.
Yep.
Can you go over virtual machine over time?
Go over the virtual machine. What is it? A virtual machine from the perspective of the... Okay, let's say you're running the virtual machine in Windows, okay? Because most people are running Windows in this class. So when you double-click start 64.bat or start 32.bat, it's almost like just running another application program like Microsoft Word, okay? Except in this case, when this program runs, it is running what we call an emulator. An emulator, as the name implies, is pretending to be something else. In this case, it's pretending to be a PC. Okay, and that PC is running Linux. So you're essentially running a computer, a virtual computer, inside your actual computer. Now, what operating system you're running inside a virtual computer is entirely up to you to decide. But in this case, I have pre-installed Linux in this particular one. The batch file is just an easy way for you to start the virtual machine because I have the entire command already figured out, so you don't have to specify the options to the command. Okay, is that helping? Okay, so this is only one console. In fact, I would just hide this console so I don't, accidentally use it. Well, this is not the only way to do it. There's another way to do it, so you get to choose which way you want to do it, but you have to pick one of the 2 ways.
For my own sanity, did you press Control Tab Shift real quick?
Sorry?
Control Tab Shift. You probably won't be able to do that.
Control Tab Shift.
I mean, it's just a mental thing. If you can do that inside that terminal.
Inside.
The terminal. Did you press Control Tab Shift?
It's not going to work. This is not a terminal, so it cannot open up multiple tabs.
And that's just because of the type of the distribution is it, right? Because of like the file that you're giving us isn't like a full Linux.
It is a full Linux, but this is not Xterm.
Oh, it doesn't have this.
It is not Xterm. This is just a SSH session as a dumb terminal. All right, so using the second terminal, I'm going to go into the same folder using the cd command. So I'm not going into the hello folder, and I will try to assemble, I'm trying to compile the program using G++-G so that I can include debug information, -C, which means I'm creating object code file, and then the name of the file, which is main.cpp. And it's complaining because no such file. Guess what? I forgot to save the file first. Okay, So the first thing you need to do before you do anything else is in the editor, you have to save the file. To save the file is to write out the file. I have no idea why they don't just call it save, but they call it write out. So type Control-O inside the editor, press the Enter key to confirm that you are writing the file as main.cpp. Now that the file is saved, I can go back to the other window and try to compile it again. So this is the reason why I want to open up multiple terminals, so that I don't have to go back and forth between the terminal and running it, go back to the terminal and running it. I can have one terminal to stay in the editor to continue to make changes to the program and use the other one to run the program. Okay, so this one I did run the compiler successfully, but the compiler has something to complain. The compiler complains that on line 6, column 3, I have an error. The error is expecting a semicolon before the word return. The word return is here, so technically speaking, you can put a semicolon anywhere before the return, like here. But that's not really conventional, okay? So most people would put a semicolon at the end of a statement, not at the beginning of a statement. So I'm going to fix the program like this. Now remember, you have to save the file first after you make changes in order for that change to become effective. So I'm going to use write out again, Control-O, in the editor, whoops, wrong terminal, Control-O, press the Enter key to make sure that we are writing this program as main.cpp, and then go back to this terminal here, and then try the G++ command again. You can use the up-down key, the cursor keys, to repeat the previous command. So cursor up will retrieve the previous command, and this time the compiling was successful. And then G++ -O will create the actual file for testing. And I have to give it the file called main.o because that's the name of the object file created from the compiling. And it's also successful, and use ./hello to run the executable called hello in the current directory. The dot means the current directory, and then the slash is just a separator, and then hello is the name of the executable that I'm trying to run here. Press the Enter key to actually run the program, and it works. Okay, it says hello, tax work. So at this point, I'm ready to turn in my homework assignment. To turn in the homework assignment is also a little bit complicated because I'm running this inside the virtual machine. The challenge is the virtual machine, just like any server that is somewhere else, does not share the same file system as Windows, okay, which is what you're running usually at home. So what you need to do is to run a utility program to transfer files from one place to another place. Okay? But before we even do that, I have to zip it up, okay? Because according to the instruction of the homework assignment, I need to zip up the entire folder. I need to create a zip file from the entire folder. So in here, I have to go up one level back to whatever folder is containing the hello subdirectory. And then I run this command called zip-r, which stands for recursive, creating hello.zip as the output file, and I'm creating the zip file from the folder hello itself. So what this command does is to create a zip file out of the entire folder. So I'm not only zipping up the CPP file, but I'm creating a archive or a zip file of the entire folder. When I do a ls here, I can see that hello.zip is now created. This is the file that you have to upload to the Moodle server, okay, for homework submission. So now I have a problem because this file is now existing inside the virtual machine, and my browser is running in the native, or I would call it, host environment. So what you need to do now is to run the other command that is also inside the Linux zip file. I know this one is a little bit complicated, but there's another way to do the same thing, so I'll show you the other way too. The other program is called WinSCP, winscp.exe. So what you need to do is to run the program, and this one, for whatever reason, does work under wine, and it gives you the interface that looks like this. Host name, once again, is localhost. The port number is 2200. And if you want to type in your username and password, you can actually do it here as well. So it won't prompt you, when you press, log in. And this one does work, which is kind of weird because PuTTY does not work. When you run WinSCP and you made a connection successfully, the left-hand side is the local side, okay, which is Windows in your case. The right-hand side is reflecting the files on the other side, which is on the virtual machine. So what you need to do is to transfer hello.zip, which is here, to the side that is local. Okay, so to this side, I'm going to change my folder to downloads. So I have a file called hello already, hello.zip. I'm going to overwrite it. So yes, to overwrite. So now I have a file called, the hello.zip file is now moved or copied from the virtual machine on this side onto the host environment on this side. And at this point, I can go back to Moodle, which is here. Scroll all the way down. Go ahead.
I don't know, I blinked or something and missed how did you just drag it over to the other side?
Yeah, just drag and drop.
Great.
Yep. So now I go back to the homework assignment description. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, and it will give you a button called Edit Submission. So you click that button, and you scroll to the same place. Now we have an interface to upload the file. Click here, and it will ask you, where is the file that you want to attach. Click Browse, and I'm already in my Downloads folder. Select the right file. Don't upload linux.zip, okay? There's not enough space to upload that file again. That's a huge file. So make sure you upload the right file, which is hello.zip. It's a really small file. In my case, it's only 4.2 kilobytes. Click Open. Click Upload this file. Wait a little bit. Roll sheet. Thank you for the reminder. Here's the roll sheet for this class. If you do not find your name on the roll sheet, just add it at the bottom. Okay, now we are not done yet. Okay, when you see this screen, it is just asking you whether you want to save this file as your attachment. So you have to remember to click Save Changes in order to finalize your submission. Okay, once you turn in something, you can go back there, delete it, and then upload another file. So if you make a mistake or you forget one thing or another, you can always go back and change it until the due date, which is 1 week from today. Are there any questions?
Yep. Questions about code blocks.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to show you how to use code blocks too.
That's fine.
Okay. So at this point, I go back to my submission. When you see that you have a file submission and it has a link to that file, that means you have successfully submitted that particular file. You can always click on that link, right-click, and save that link as a file, so you can double-check to see whether that really is the file that you want to upload. Are there any questions about all the steps, of how to use the virtual machine to do your homework assignment? Yep.
What was the password, the credentials to log into with S3?
It's the same password, which is the password of user is user. Yep. USER, all lowercase.
So you can use any text-based editor?
In the virtual machine, only 2 editors are installed. Nano and VI are installed. So there are no Notepad++, because Notepad++ requires a GUI, and all the editors that I have installed are what we call plain text editors, so they're not GUI programs. Yep.
A question about turning off virtual machine. So you go login is root, password is root. So I did the command power off, but the virtual machine didn't close out all the way.
Mm-hmm. It should.
It didn't when I hit power off.
What happened when you?
It just still stayed there.
You didn't do a single thing.
It ran commands, but
okay.
It didn't turn off.
But it did not power off. Okay.
No, it didn't power off.
That's kind of weird. Yep.
When we move a file from the virtual machine to the Windows,
Mm-hmm.
how can we change the folder that it's going to go to? Is it only when the
You can double click.
Yeah.
So if I go back to WinSCP here, the file hello.zip should be at the same level as the folder hello. And you can use the dot dot to go up one level, and you can double click on the folder to go down one level.
I think you're asking to the Windows
Yeah,
side.
but when you do-
chose downloads
Oh, you chose downloads, it's not gonna automatically go to downloads?
on the Windows side. When you're transferring it from Linux into the
You can just make a new file
you
and
just
drag
click
it into
OK.
that file.
Yeah, all I did is to drag this over to this side to copy the file over.
He's asking how to put it in like a different area.
Yeah.
Instead
He
of
said
down.
Oh,
You
to a
chose
different
downloads.
area? Oh, when you're on either side, you can use the navigation to go up and go down a level.
You don't have to put it in downloads.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
You can put it anywhere. I mean,
Just make a new file somewhere else if you don't want to put it in the same
yeah,
area.
you can put it into desktop if you want to. Yeah, I just like my desktop to be cleaner. Okay. Question? Any other questions about how to use a virtual machine to do it? Okay. It looks a little bit more complicated. It's probably a little bit more complicated, but it does give you, it exposes you to using the command line interface of Linux, which can be helpful in your other classes, but maybe not immediately. So this is one way to do it. I'll show you the other way to do it. And before I show you the other way, what I'll do is I'm going to shut down the virtual machine. So go back to the console part of the virtual machine. I logged in as root already. If you're not logged in as root, log in as root. And the password of root is beer. And you'll use the command power off. It should shut down everything like this. The other messages are coming from PuTTY because I'm terminating the server itself, so I'm losing the connection from PuTTY's perspective. Here we go.
I guess maybe because it didn't. I don't know.
Okay. You have to make sure that in the 64-bit version of Windows you use Start 64. That might be an issue.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the second way to do it is to use code blocks, which is what some people like. I personally do not like code blocks just because it's a little bit busy. All right. So I do have code blocks installed in Linux too, but whether it's installed in Linux or Windows, it looks pretty much the same way. So here's code blocks. It's an IDE or integrated development environment, and it gives you an interface that looks like this. And there's a report here. Okay, fine. Oh, okay, I think I just closed it. Start it again. Don't annoy me again. That's about spell checking. All right. So here we have code blocks, and in code blocks, you're not dealing with files or folder. You're dealing with projects. So if you want to create, your project in code blocks, you have to create a project first, and then inside the project you can deal with the individual files. So the first thing you do is to go to File, go to New, and then go to Project. So you're creating a new project at this point, and then there are a lot of choices. Okay, you can create, any number, many of these projects. So what you want to do is to create what we call a console project. A console project means the executable or the program is designed to run in the text console, which is what we did in the Linux environment. So select this one, and then click Go. Okay, that's a project, and your build target is a console. Files. We want to use a C++ source file, and I think that's all that we have to select. So let's click. Yep, I think that's all that we need to do. And then click Go. Please select the language you want to use. The reason why it lets you choose is because there are slight differences between C and C++, like the extension of the file that it's going to save. In this class, we're using C++, so make sure you choose C++ and not C. Otherwise, it will save the file, but in a different extension. So make sure C++ is selected, click next. And this part is important. Please select the folder where you want the new project to be created, as well as its title. I will just call it hello, okay? Make this name exactly the same as what I want you to use for the name of the folder, okay? Which is just hello. It will automatically populate this part here, which is the name of the project file. The project file is not important to me, okay? So you can go in and change that name to whatever you want. The folder to create a project in, this one is misleading because it is just my home folder at this point. So it is almost like, well, Tag, don't you need to create a folder called hello first and then make that the folder to create a project in? No, I don't, okay? Because when it creates a project, it automatically creates a folder for the project using the same name. So if I don't specify anything, it will automatically create a subfolder called hello and then put all the files inside the subfolder. So you want to leave this one just basically as the default, but make a note of that so that you know where to find your programs. The result file name is okay. That part you don't have to make any changes. Just leave it the way it is. And then click next. A project with the same name already exists. Well, that's because of the previous class. It's probably going to be okay. I'll just finish it and see whether it project file already exists. Are you really sure you want to overwrite it? Yes, in this case. Warning, the wizard is about to overwrite the following existing file. Yes, go ahead. All right. So I have just completed the process to create a project in CodeBlocks. Okay. Are there any questions about this step? Huh?
So that was a lot of steps, right?
There are a lot of steps. Yes, that's why I personally do not like Well, either way, there are a lot of steps. Okay, so the question is, which way will give you the option, or will give you the tools that is more flexible and not just being used in this class. Okay, so when you look at the management view here, it will give you the workspace, and then inside we have one project called hello. Inside there we have sources, and inside sources there should be one single file called main.cpp, and that's what you need. Okay, that is the one file that you need to edit for your homework assignment. So I'm going to open it. Double clicking it will open the file, and this is what it looks like at this point. It's not using printf. You know what? For this particular homework assignment, I don't care. Okay, cout works just as well. Okay, but you do have to change hello world to use the format, and say it is your first name and then apostrophe s and then world. Okay, easy enough. I mean, how easier can it get to write a program? Yep.
The IO stream is the same thing as the standard IO?
No, it is not. But in this case, this will work. Okay, the program as it was before I made any changes will just print hello world. But I do want it to change. I want to change it to print hello and then your first name's apostrophe s world. So that's why I made that change here.
Okay. But will we end up discussing the difference between standard IO?
We will, but not at this point. At this point, we just want to make a program that runs and prints hello and then your world, and then that's the end of this particular project. Okay, so I want to make sure I save all the files. There are two buttons to save files. This one will save the current file, which is in this case your main.cpp. If you have multiple files open, with multiple tabs, this other button will save all of those files at the same time, which is kind of handy because sometimes, with complicated projects, you'll be opening up multiple files, and that will save. This button will save all of those files. So I'm going to save the file first, and now I'm ready to run the program. So to run the program, you can just click the run button here, and it will go through the process to compile and run the program. It's not showing me. It executed the program, but it's so fast that I cannot see it. Okay. it's because the program runs, it prints, and then it exits right away. And the command that is using to run the program will pop up an X terminal, run the program, and then immediately close the X term, so I cannot really see it happening. Okay. So if you cannot see the program running, how do you make sure that the program is in fact running and has the right output? This is how you do it. I can show you this, in Linux first. If you want to, I can switch to Windows and show you how to do it in Windows. But in Linux, this is how you can do it. You have to go back to the command line in Linux. Okay, this is a regular command line in Linux, and you have to go to the folder where the project is located. So in this case, the project is located in a subfolder called Hello. And inside that folder, it has a folder called bin. And it is the same way if you use code blocks in Windows, it will have a subfolder called bin. So go to the bin folder. And inside the bin folder, depending on how you set up everything, it will have either or both, okay, debug and release. Go to the debug subfolder, and that's the hello executable. In Windows, it is not going to be just hello hello. It will have the extension .exe. Okay, and you can run it, from here, and you can see this program runs, but it only prints hello world instead of hello text world. So something is not right. That's not the right executable. Go to build here and build it. Rebuild the entire project. There we go. Rebuild the project will cause the deletion of all object files and building it from scratch. Yeah, that's what I want to do. And it shows me, I know most of you cannot see it here, but it's creating a new executable where my command line is located. So right here, I have the same file. I can use ls-l to look at the timestamp of the file. It is 1:56, which is the current time. So I have just updated the executable, and I'll go ahead and run it again, and this time it shows the hello text world. Okay. So this is how you can do it in Windows. Does anyone want me to reboot into Windows entirely and show you how to do it in Windows?
I'm not sure
okay.
exactly.
Now, once I switch to Windows, I may not be able to record depending on what they have installed here. So let's go ahead and stop the recorder first.